a day of searching through the rubble in the capital. Just yesterday, around this time, we knew of 13 people killed. We hoped that the terrible number would not rise any further. But today, the rescue operation was completed and it turned out that many more were killed, 31 people. Even Donald Trump, who until recently chose his words carefully when it came to Putin's actions, is now writing that Russia's actions are disgusting. Meanwhile, Germany is already equipping Ukraine with new Patriots. All of this is being covered today in the summary edition of TSN as part of the unifying marathon, the most important on the 1,255th day of the war, tracked by the 1+1 team. So, 31 victims of the Russian attack in Kiev. In memory of those who died, today is a day of mourning in the capital and the region. In the morning, rescuers recovered 3 more bodies from under the rubble. Among those killed by Russian terrorists were 5 children. All of them died in an apartment building in the Sviatoshinsky district, where an enemy missile strike destroyed an entire entrance of the high-rise. Search and rescue operations were carried out there all night and into the morning. They were completed an hour ago. At this location alone, rescuers pulled out 20 bodies. Let me remind you, on the night of July 31st, Russia launched a massive attack on the capital with drones and missiles. The greatest destruction was in the Sviatoshinsky, Solomiansky, Shevchenkivsky, and Holosivsky districts. Buildings were damaged at 27 sites, and several medical facilities were also affected. The blast wave also hit one of Kiev's mosques. In total, there are 160 injured in the capital, 16 of whom are children. Ukraine has initiated an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council due to yet another escalation of terror by Russia. And once again, Sumy is under enemy fire. Around 6 in the evening, the Russians struck the railway infrastructure. The Kharkiv-Uzhhorod train had its windows damaged. The passengers survived. They were moved to other carriages. The train continued on its way. This time, the occupiers used 2 attack drones, and earlier, attacks in Sumy had caused power outages. In the morning, the Russians shelled Kherson with artillery. A mother of 3 girls was killed. The children were taken to the hospital with acute stress reactions. There are also 2 other injured people. They have mine explosion injuries. 3 children were pulled from the rubble in the Pokrovska community, in Dnipropetrovsk region. 2 of the little ones have shrapnel wounds. A 4-year-old boy is in serious condition. In a neighboring village, a woman was wounded. There is significant destruction in the Nikopol district. There are fires there, apartment buildings, a lyceum, and a farm have been damaged. The Russians deliberately struck a 5-story building in Kramatorsk. This is in Donetsk region. 3 city residents were killed at the site of the strike, and another 10 were injured. Pokrovsk also came under fire. There, 6 people were injured. In Kostantinivka and Sviatohorivka, 3 people were wounded. At dawn, the terrorists also shelled Zaporizhia with multiple rocket launchers. In Vasilivka, a man was killed and a woman was injured, and 3 more people were hurt in Malokoterenivka. And now we return to the locations in Kiev where debris is being cleared and the consequences of Russian terror are being dealt with. TSN correspondents Nelly Kowalska and Natalia Nahorna will be joining us live from the studio. They are near the most heavily damaged buildings. Nelly Kowalska is in the Sviatoshinsky district, and Natalia Nahorna is in the Solomiansky district. And we'll start with Nelly, who has been following the rescue operation right now near the very building where 28 people lost their lives. Nelly, what has been happening near this building over the past day? As I understand it, the search operation has ended. Now the so-called repair phase has started, right?
You know, even the repair work has already finished for today. I'll ask the cameraman to show it. You see, the rescuers have completely finished their work and are getting ready to leave. And starting tomorrow, utility workers will begin working here. That will be, you know, more of a cosmetic job here in this area. And now we've had the chance to get closer to the destroyed building, and up close, of course, the damage looks absolutely horrific. We can see, you know, just the remnants of someone's life. Belongings left behind, just behind broken doors and in the windows. Here, as you already correctly mentioned, 28 people lost their lives. And now I'll ask our directors to show the video of Ms. Katerina. Yesterday, the whole country was following her fate. She and her younger son survived, but 4 more members of her family remained under the rubble: her daughter, her son, and 2 grandchildren. And now I want to show you, right here by the building, they've set up a memorial with photos of her family members. Just imagine an entire family perished. We see Natalia. She was a kindergarten teacher. Next to her is Alexander. He is Mrs. Katerina's son and Natalia's brother, and Natalia's 2 children. One was 17 years old, the other was 22. Photos of the victims and more detailed information about them are already starting to appear on social media. Today, we sadly learned that among those who died in this building was our former colleague. His name was Vitaly. You can now see his face on your screens. And other people, young, beautiful, who truly had their whole lives ahead of them, who were successful, happy, normal people and just wanted to live. And here we see a memorial dedicated to one family, and a little off to the side, now I'll ask to show the video, there's a children's memorial. We know that as many as 5 children died at this location. And just imagine, out of those 5, 3 were internally displaced persons. We know the story of the girl Nastia, her younger 10-year-old sister, and their mother. Yesterday, right here near the site where the rubble was being cleared, Nastia's classmates were waiting, truly believing that their friend would survive. However, the miracle did not happen. The bodies of these 3 people were found last today. They were displaced persons from Kharkiv. They came here to Kiev seeking safety, but were killed by a Russian missile. And here at this children's memorial, among the toys, you can see a photo of a boy who was an intern. His name was Matvey. He was 6 years old. He lived with his parents and 2 brothers. His brothers' names were Mikhailu and Lev. Unfortunately, Matvey wasn't lucky. A wall collapsed on him. The other family members managed to survive. Today, the boy's parents came here. They refused to speak on camera. However, his karate coach agreed to talk to us. The little boy was an athlete and had achieved great success. The coach couldn't hold back tears when talking about the boy and his family. Let's hear it straight from him.
He was a very diligent child, who didn't seem like he was only 6. He thought far beyond his years. He wasn't just a child, he was pure gold. In his group, you could say, with his peers, he got along great. He was friends with everyone. There were no conflicts. He was always playing with everyone, before and after practice. But during training, he was completely focused.
Well, and today the coach was in a very unstable state and said that we still have to get through tomorrow, because tomorrow Matvey will be buried. And regarding everyday matters. Today, residents were finally allowed into this building because this entrance is destroyed, completely destroyed, while the others are badly damaged, and for a whole day people couldn't retrieve their documents or even the most essential things. And today, they finally got that opportunity. Now, let's hear directly from those who were allowed into their apartments.
Do you think anything in your place survived? Anything untouched?
I don't care. I just need to get my documents and find my cat.
You didn't find it?
No, I didn't.
Which floor do you live on?
This side.
And what's the state of your apartment now?
I'll go check.
You can't see from outside.
No, I see there. Windows blown out.
Are you hoping to get your pet back?
Of course.
What were you able to save from your apartment? Documents, money, berries I picked, and that's it. No belongings at all? Oh, there are belongings. It's just that, for the second time now.
Well, and this building was very friendly, and the people who lived here were really good and kind-hearted. Everyone around here talks about it, It's an interesting thing. Today we had the opportunity to talk with the head of the Sviatoshan District State Administration. He said that almost all the residents, over 300 people from this building, have applied for one-time assistance. 10,000 hryvnias will be paid out to people, paid out in a single payment. But relatively few people have applied for temporary housing or for rental compensation, considering how huge this building is. Now, please listen to the direct speech.
We have 320 people submitting applications. 5 applications were submitted for compensation of 10,000 hryvnias, and 17 were for housing rent. There was an offer for temporary relocation to other people's homes, but only 3 people applied. There will be a headquarters meeting tomorrow as well. Maybe people will come tomorrow, or maybe they will apply tomorrow.
That's the situation for now. People continue to gather here, coming to pay their respects to the deceased. I know that in the Solomiansky district, my colleague Natalia Nahorna is currently working. Natalia, I'm handing it over to you. Tell us what the situation is like there.
Can I start by showing everyone the wall I saw when I came here yesterday morning, when everything was still covered in dust and smoke? This is the wall where there's a painting of the Russian warship being struck by a Ukrainian Neptune missile. And probably, despite all the tragedy that happened here, the thought that came to mind was exactly where Russia and Russians should go after the warship, as we say. This building, as you can see, is partially destroyed. Just yesterday, when I came here, there were wrecked cars everywhere. Today, they were removed so they wouldn't get in the way of the cleanup. There were literally dozens of damaged cars here in the yard, just like there are dozens of damaged buildings around. Let's listen to the official statement from the district administration about the total number of destructions. Let's hear it directly.
Unfortunately, we have 3 fatalities. In total, across the district, we have 49 injured, and about 100 houses have been damaged. Also, 8 educational institutions, 1 healthcare facility, nearly 3,000 windows shattered, and about 20 roofs destroyed.
And right now, we're in the middle of a bustling hive of activity, if I can put it that way. From early morning, utility workers started working here, but volunteers immediately joined them, including volunteers from Dobrobat, who actually joined in yesterday. A lot of volunteers have come here, and among them are many young people, students, and actually even school kids. These are residents of neighboring buildings who come here and say that they've already experienced such tragedy, that they've already had their windows blown out in their apartments. We know what this is like, and that's why we're here, to help. Of course, by evening there were, I wanted to say, a bit fewer people. But now I see that cars are arriving again, and people are still coming, even though they've been working since morning. Obviously, everyone is tired, but I will definitely tell you more about them later today. Stay tuned for more in our broadcast. But for now, I suggest you watch a story about what happened, what the aftermath was like, how this courtyard looked after a Russian missile hit, and about the people who were here helping to deal with the consequences. Watch the story further. A large number of ambulances. The roads leading to Vidrodin are packed with ambulances. Doctors are on standby near the damaged buildings. This one suffered the most. Firefighters have to extinguish it from both sides. Mr. Yuri, with his head bandaged, looks at what's left of the apartment.
The window bars are still standing. This was my apartment. It was our apartment.
He refused hospitalization, but his daughter was taken to the hospital. She was cut by glass.
There's nothing left there. Everything is destroyed. When the blast wave hit, things flew in from the window and someone got me. My daughter got hit too. She was taken to the hospital. They're stitching up the wounds.
This isn't the first strike in this neighborhood this summer. And it's not our first time working here either. The previous attack on this area was on July 4th. Last time it was Shahids, this time it's a ballistic missile. This is also Vidrad, but these are the consequences of a different missile. This is another location that was hit in the Solomiansky district. Here too, cars are damaged, buildings are damaged, and people are injured.
The missile, it seems, flew in from that side, right into the roof, and now there's no apartment left. Everything there is just dust. Everything, the windows, the doors, the walls, everything, just everything.
There are shards and shattered glass everywhere. Among the places that were hit, there's also a medical facility. Here, as you can see, the windows have been blown out. Ms. Natalia is carrying what's left of a window and, for a split second, is happy to see us.
Oh my God, hello. Hello. You've already arrived?
But then she shares her grief.
And my son came home on leave from the front, and now he's been concussed for the second time.
Volodymyr from the neighboring building is a war veteran. He explains that he didn't even have a chance to get down to the shelter.
By the time I put on my prosthesis, I was still getting ready. I just got back from the war. We came home, and then this happened.
Just a few hours after the strike, volunteers from all over the city are already arriving to help deal with the aftermath.
Right now, together with the utility services, we're cutting plywood, helping to board things up, assisting the state emergency service, and clearing away debris and rubble. We're also talking to people, recording what kind of help they need. Mostly, it's boarding up windows and clearing out debris from the strikes. That's the main thing. It's about quick response.
A Russian missile in the Vidradnyi district of the capital took the lives of 3 Ukrainians. Natalia Nahorna, Valeria Kovalinska, TSN, 1+1, United News Marathon.
The Russian terrorist attacks that claimed 31 lives in the capital remain one of the main topics of our broadcast. So in this broadcast, TSN will also connect with Natalia Nahorna and Nelly Kowalska, who remain at the sites of the enemy attacks. What Russia is doing is disgusting. That's how the President of the United States commented on the latest air attack on Kyiv yesterday. Answering journalists' questions, he once again confirmed that he intends to impose sanctions against Russia. Although, according to him, he is not sure how much they can actually influence Putin. The president also mentioned that Donald Trump's special representative, Stephen Witko, will soon visit Moscow again. Although earlier he stated that he was seriously disappointed with Putin because, as he put it, Putin is very constructive in words, but does not stop shelling Ukrainian cities. And now, joining us live from Washington is TSN correspondent Olga Koshelenko. Let's bring her into the conversation. Alia, hello? It's exactly 1 week left until the deadline that Trump set for Putin. What are people saying about this in the United States? Is it possible that Trump might change his mind? What could influence him? And what is the purpose of Vikrov's visit? Could it somehow change the situation?
Greetings, colleague. Given Donald Trump's behavior, it's unlikely that anyone can give a definite answer to this question right now. What we do know for sure is that the deadline is indeed next Friday. But at the same time, let's keep in mind that President Trump has repeatedly moved his red lines with ease. This time, it's clear that he was extremely irritated by the fact that Putin didn't immediately respond to his statements about the specific deadlines by which Trump wanted him to implement a ceasefire. Trump issued his first ultimatum of 50 days back on July 14th, then later reduced it to 10 days, but Putin remained silent throughout. This week, Secretary of State Marco Rubio let slip that there had been some contacts with the Russians on this matter, but obviously not at the highest level, and they didn't yield any results. Donald Trump even got into a war of words on social media with former Russian President Medvedev, who, in his usual manner, warned Trump that ultimatums could lead to war with Russia. And even though Medvedev is, to put it mildly, nowhere near Trump's level, Trump still decided to respond to him on Truth Social.
There are practically no joint businesses between Russia and the USA. Let it stay that way. And tell Medvedev, that loser, the former president of Russia who thinks he's still president, to watch his mouth. He's treading on dangerous ground.
After that, not only did Medvedev not stop, but today on his official Telegram channel, he responded to Trump again, calling his reaction nervous, which, according to him, proves that Russia is on the right track. And for some reason, he advised Trump to remember, I quote, his favorite movies about the Walking Dead. And Trump responded again, literally less than half an hour ago. His reply appeared on Truth Social, saying that he considers Medvedev's rhetoric to be foolish and provocative, and because of this, he ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be put on standby in the relevant region in case Medvedev's words turn out to be something more. A response also came from Putin himself. Reacting to Trump's words about being disappointed in him, he said, and I quote, disappointment is caused by excessive expectations. And then he continued with his usual rhetoric in full about the goals of the special military operation, the illegitimacy of the Kiev regime, and so on. So there's no constructive approach or even a hint of a desire to end the war. And in response to journalists' questions, Trump really did call the recent shelling of Kiev disgusting. And, for example, the daughter of Special Representative Keith Kellogg, Megan Mops, a well-known volunteer who has visited Ukraine more than once again reminded both her father and the whole world who Putin really is. Rest assured, this is Putin's response to President Trump's ultimatum, she wrote. He is once again testing American strength and resilience. And she added this. And then, on top of that, there were Russian missiles, but only after civilians have left the bomb shelters and gone back to their homes. Russia is sending a calculated message to America and the West. We are not afraid of you. However, Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, who is currently in Gaza, will then travel to Moscow. Trump said this the day before, adding the phrase, believe it or not. Witkoff has been to Russia multiple times, most recently in April of this year. Each time, he met personally with Putin, had long conversations with him, brought back gifts for Trump from Putin, and later repeated Putin's rhetoric about Ukraine in interviews. The publication Political wrote this week that the United States, as a last resort, might offer Russia some significant economic deals to get it to cease fire. So this visit is potentially dangerous, colleague.
Alia, look, this deadline is supposed to expire in a week. And Trump's main trump card, which he's talking about now, is the new major sanctions he's promising. What are they saying in Washington? What kind of sanctions could these be? Who would they affect? And what exactly would make them so unique compared to the numerous sanctions that have already been imposed on Russia by the United States, Europe, and other countries?
Actually, Trump hasn't been saying directly lately what specific sanctions there will be. The wording used is tariffs and other measures. Previously, he talked about secondary sanctions on trade with Russia. What does that mean? The Kremlin still has several major trading partners. First and foremost, these are China, India, and Brazil, which buy Russian oil and other goods, thereby filling Putin's war budget. In July, Trump promised 100% tariffs for those who trade with Russia. Essentially, it's an ultimatum: either you buy Russian oil, and then you'll face 100% additional tariffs when trading with America, or you don't buy it, and there are no tariffs. As experts say, 100% tariffs basically mean a halt to trade. They will become economically unviable, so Russia's counterparties will have to make this final choice. Are they with Russia or with America? And by the way, this week Trump has already imposed tariffs and penalties, though only 25% for India. And according to Reuters, at least the state-owned Indian companies have already started suspending oil shipments from Russia and are redirecting to other markets. However, Donald Trump himself isn't very confident in the effectiveness of the tariffs since, as he says Putin wants to keep fighting. Still, the day before, the President of the United States once again reiterated that he intends to impose sanctions.
Yes, we are going to impose sanctions. I don't know if the sanctions bother him. They know about the sanctions. I know better than anyone about sanctions, tariffs, and all the rest. I'm not sure if it will have any effect, but we're going to do it.
It's hard to say how these sanctions will be implemented, if at all. On the one hand, we see that Trump easily imposes tariffs on any country he wants, all by himself, without needing any additional approval from other branches of government. On the other hand, there is a bill registered in Congress on this matter. And this path through Congress is longer and will allow Trump to ramp up the threats. For example, by initiating consideration of this bill in the Senate, but not imposing sanctions immediately. In short, Khalid, the coming week promises to be anything but boring as we await big news. Holy moly!
Thank you for all these details. TSN correspondent in the United States, Alya Koshelenko, is on the line with the studio to discuss what the White House's reaction might be if Putin doesn't comply with Trump's deadline and doesn't end the war within the next week. Last night, there were at least 10 explosions in Taganrog, Russia. Drones attacked the Bereev aircraft company. Also, according to information from social media, the 708th Military Transport Aviation Regiment was hit. The Russian forces had to deploy not only air defense systems, but also helicopters, yet the results of their efforts speak for themselves. Eyewitnesses filmed several large fires at the scene. Drones also troubled Russia the day before. In Penza, they attacked a radio electronics plant that works for the Russian military. The defense of Ukrainian skies. Germany will provide Ukraine with 2 Patriot air defense systems. The decision was made in the wake of massive shelling of Kiev after the latest wave of attacks. Kiev is calling on its allies to strengthen support for air defense. And now Berlin will provide systems from Bundeswehr stockpiles, while at the same time allocating funds for an unprecedented buildup of its own defense. And now, joining us live from Berlin, is TSN correspondent Natalia Feibrick. Just now, here she is. Natalia, congratulations. So, when can Ukraine expect Patriot? What is known about this decision by Berlin? And do we know what configuration, in particular, we are talking about?
Yes, Svyatoslav, hello. In fact, in the coming days, the Patriot launchers from these 2 systems are expected to arrive in Ukraine, and the rest of the components will be sent over the next 2 to 3 months. This was announced by the German Ministry of Defense. And it's also important to understand that these are actually launchers taken from Bundeswehr stockpiles. In return, Germany hopes to receive 2 replacement systems from American factories as soon as possible. And there is already an agreement with the Pentagon about this. Germany needs to receive these systems as quickly as possible, first and foremost, and, well, they are really counting on this and on the Americans when they hand over their additional air defense systems to Ukraine. At the same time, the country's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, calls Germany the main partner of Ukraine in protecting Ukrainian airspace. Danke, Deutschland. This is what the Ukrainian ambassador to Germany wrote on social media. He actually mentioned the victims of the latest Russian strike on Kiev and on a residential building, and said that this is why Germany's decision to provide air defense systems now is so important. And at the same time, Germany is really focusing on its own defense right now, and this is also reflected in the draft budget. This draft has already been presented by the German government, and it truly represents a complete financial pivot towards self-defense and investment in defense. Interestingly, they also want to invest by taking out enormous, gigantic loans. Just for next year alone, they have planned loans amounting to 100 billion euros. And the plan is that they want to double the size of their own army. Well, by 2030, this should be 460,000 personnel, 200,000 reservists, and the purchase of additional equipment. And they also want to invest in civilian infrastructure, because it hasn't seen any investment for a long time, and often it's just outdated. Here's what they have to say about it.
We are investing more than ever before, and that's the right thing to do. And that doesn't absolve us of the responsibility for strict consolidation of the main budget. The year 2026 will be the second consecutive year of record investments. We are investing in the strength and vitality of our country. The goal is for citizens to feel improvements in their everyday lives.
And despite the willingness to take on debt, despite the fact that in other areas there will have to be significant savings, support for Ukraine still remains a focus of this German government, and this is also reflected in the draft budget. 8.5 billion euros for military support to Ukraine are allocated in this draft, in this document. And in fact, this is the largest amount the German government plans to allocate to Kiev since the start of the full-scale war. Well, this budget will actually be discussed and adopted in the German parliament starting at the end of September, so some changes are still possible. However, these priorities is namely strengthening their own defense, investments, and strong support for Ukraine. These priorities will remain, for sure.
Well, here it's really Denki, Deutschland, but also thank you for the details. TSN correspondent Natalia Fibrik on the delivery of new Patriot air defense systems to Ukrainian defense forces and, in general, on Germany's support.